The Syrian civil war has been ongoing since March of 2011. To date, more than 100,000 people have been killed. As I'm sure you are aware, evidence suggests that a poison gas attack occurred near the city of Damascus on August 21st. It has been reported that more than 1,400 men, women, and children were killed as a result of that attack. The total number of people killed in this conflict is staggering, and in the process, large portions of the country have been reduced to rubble. The human tragedy and suffering is incalculable. Once hostilities finally cease, it will likely take decades to rebuild the country. And the feelings of animosity and disdain that exist between the government and the governed may well continue for decades more. By now, UN inspectors have departed Syria. It is unknown when the results of their work will be published. However, we do know that their main purpose was only to determine if a chemical weapon had been used. Even in the event of a positive finding, their conclusions will not indicate who was responsible for its deployment. Hello, it's John Hampton. You're in conservative company. I've already produced 2 reports on Syria. U.S. One Step Closer to Arming Syrian Rebels and Should the U.S. Arm Syrian Rebels are located at inconservativecompany.com. They both contain accompanying videos. There's a lot of information there, so if you get a chance, please take a look at those. With this most recent incident indicating usage of chemical weapons and the possibility of U.S. military intervention, I felt compelled to produce a 3rd report. Now, President Obama and Secretary of State Kerry have both said publicly that they believe the Syrian government is responsible for the poison gas attack. Of course, the Syrian government denies it. And President Obama's announcement that use of chemical weapons by the Syrian government would equate to crossing an imaginary red line has been well documented. So the question now dominating the American landscape is, should the Obama administration mount a military response to the poison gas attacks? On a PBS interview on August 28th, President Obama related that, if we can take limited, tailored approaches, not getting drawn into a long conflict, not a repetition of Iraq, if we are saying in a clear and decisive but very limited way, we send a shot across the bow to stop doing this. That can have a positive impact on our national security over the long term, and may have a positive impact in the sense that chemical weapons are not again used on innocent civilians. The President also mentioned that regime change was not an objective of the strike. At a White House meeting on August 30th, President Obama remarked that, "We are not considering any action that would involve boots on the ground or that would involve a long-term campaign. We are looking at a limited, narrow act that would help make sure that Syria and others understand that the international community cares about maintaining this chemical weapons ban. We will consider options that meet the narrow concern around chemical weapons, understanding that there's not going to be a solely military solution to the underlying conflict and tragedy that has taken place in Syria." Why is he announcing this strategy to the world? And while speaking at the State Department on August 30th, John Kerry said in part, "We believe the primary objective is to have a diplomatic process that can resolve this through negotiation. Because we know there is no ultimate military solution. It has to be political. It has to happen at the negotiating table, and we are deeply committed to getting there." To his credit, on August 31st, the President announced that he would seek approval from Congress before taking military action in Syria. However, Congress does not return from its break until September 9th. At that time, they will take up the issue and eventually vote on it. I'm not going to speculate as to why President Obama had a sudden change of heart. I'm just glad to see there will be a brief cooling off period. But with or without a cooling off period, I'm still opposed to U.S. intervention in Syria for the following reasons. First, if chemical weapon usage in Syria is a threat to our own national defense, then why has President Obama described a punitive attack, which is not meant to accomplish regime change, will inflict only minimal damage over a short duration and has now been delayed for at least another 10 to 12 days. Both the President and Secretary of State said that a military-only solution would not solve the problem. But attacks as anemic sounding in nature as the one described by President Obama are not likely to force Syrian leadership to the negotiating table. Second, earlier this year, Al-Qaeda acknowledged that Syrian rebels had become a part of their network and were fighting to establish a caliphate in Syria. In the event U.S. intervention emboldens or facilitates battlefield victories for the rebels, there is always a possibility that chemical weapons stockpiles could be confiscated by those same rebels and distributed to any one of a number of known terrorist groups. Those weapons could reappear anywhere at any time. Lastly, and perhaps for the best reason of all, the Pentagon says we can't afford any operations in Syria until we first appropriate additional funds. Sequestration has cut our defense budget. So how can the President expand the role of the military after its budget has been reduced? And if we attack, it's almost certain that retaliatory strikes will be launched against Israel. Now, if we can't afford to bomb Syria, how can we possibly afford to defend Israel? Whoever is responsible for the release of chemical weapons in Syria should be punished with a severity befitting the most heinous of mass murderers. Again, the human suffering created by this atrocity is incalculable. I hope to see those responsible for the poison gas attacks punished. But I think President Obama is on shaky ground if he believes he can walk away without fear of retaliation after destroying only a limited amount of Syrian infrastructure and soldiers. And my final point is this. Before our government invests one bomb, one rocket, or one missile in Syria, they need to bring those responsible for the Benghazi attacks and anyone who participated in the cover-up to justice. Although tragic, the lives lost in Syria should not be elevated above those of Americans who were lost while so gallantly serving their country in Benghazi nearly 1 year ago. To do so would show a willful disregard for the sacrifices that they and their families have made. Thank you for watching this presentation. For more videos and articles, please go to inconservativecompany.com.